Yoichi Isagi. Yes, in technicality, he would be named something different. For simplistic sakes, we'll call him Isagi. But Isagi would be born to ego. But this little relationship he has, this little parent to son relationship he has, is a little different. Isagi was born with the most athletic woman possible. So let's just say Ego tried to find the best woman he possibly could to have the best genes they possibly could have, and out came Isagi. Ego's goal was to make the best striker. He's been thinking about this for a long time, and when he's done with football entirely, he wants to be able to carry on his legacy of football. So that's exactly what he's going to do through Isagi. He's going to make sure that his son is going to be the best striker to ever be seen in Japan. And this would become kind of bad for the relationship between Ego and his wife, or at least the mother of Isagi, and eventually it would lead to a divorce. So he'd become a single dad, and this would allow him to just lock in on exactly what he wants for his son, and that is to have him be the best in football, the best ever. So from the day he's able to walk until years down the line, Isagi begins to train in football to the point that all he wants to do is make his father proud. At least for a long time, he's actually having fun, and on top of that, trying his best to make his father proud. In doing this, it makes him kind of psyched up for the idea of playing football every day. But after a long time would pass, about 12 years, and being that he's now 12 years old, he would now realize that football is the only reason why his father is even around, that he doesn't even really care for him. And now that he's actually working on a new project, a project known as Project Blue Lock, he's not around ever. All he does is leave on the refrigerator and on different spreadsheets exactly what Isagi needs to do for the day. He needs to go to school, and then right when he comes back, he needs to do his workouts, and then needs to do his drills, and then needs to do his pre-workouts or post-workouts, and so on and so forth. He has morning workouts, he goes to school, he works out at school. During PE, he has a strict regimen as well, and even a strict regimen in terms of his meals and eating, so that he could bulk up and get bigger, so he can be strong and be a striker that nobody can stop. And in the beginning, Isagi thought this was great. I mean, he'll be the best at football, and he was at his school. He was absolutely dominant. No one was even close to him. But at what cost did this even take? He no longer sees his father, and on top of that, all he does is eat, sleep, train, football. That's it. So when he would get home one day, he would be frustrated about this. He would continue to train, but eventually he would call up his father, asking, what is he even doing? What is he doing more important than his own son? And Ego would tell him that there is extremely more important things that he's doing at the moment. Extremely more important. He's trying to build something. He's going to make something for him, for his son. He's gonna make something. Blue Lock is almost at a front. He tells him that once Blue Lock is created, it's basically created for him. It's going to specialize in strikers, and he's going to learn even more, competing against the best of the best, because at the end of the day, iron sharpens iron, and Isagi can truly be the best with Blue Lock. And Isagi initially would be kind of psyched about this, but then a realization would flood over him once again. His father was still putting football in the forefront. I mean, he might be acting as if his son was the forefront, and that his son was the more or less reason why Blue Lock was coming. But that's not necessarily the case. Yes, in a way it's true, but it's not for the betterment of Isagi. It's the betterment of getting Japan's perfect striker. He's just being used. Isagi would even bring this up years down the line. He's now 14 years old, bringing this up to Iko, but Iko would deny this and tell him that he's actually going on a bit of an excursion. He's going to be schooling from in different places and from different places, but For now, he's not going to give too much information, but he would be heading out to brand new places. And of course, Isagi would question what he's talking about. Where is he even going? I mean, seriously. And Igo would say that there's not much to really explain at this moment, and there's really nothing for him to necessarily even worry about. Isagi says that of course he's going to worry about it. I mean, it's his life. And of course, Igo would shake his head and say that he's serious, that he shouldn't worry about any of this. Focus on his training and focus on getting better, because once he's able to be the best, that's all that truly matters. Isagi would shake this off, just being annoyed by this, but a little bit of time would pass, and finally Isagi would be sent off on a plane, a private jet, to a place that is very unknown to him. He would even ask the pilot where they're going, and he says that they're going to France, that it's going to be a nice time, kid, so sit back and relax. But that nice time wouldn't last that long. He would do some sightseeing, but eventually a beautiful car would show up, a car ready for Isagi. He would go in, and when he would arrive at a new place, he would arrive at this apartment of some sorts, and someone else was actually waiting for him. Some guy that he doesn't even know, but he would speak to him, and he would say that he's more or less an assistant. And Isagi would ask, an assistant of who? And he would say, an assistant of the one and only Noel Noah. And he would be completely shocked. Noel Noah? Are you serious? I mean, Isagi has heard about this guy, but this guy's insanely talented. He's heard that he's more or less going to be the best striker in the world, and that is soon to be extremely true. And Isagi eventually would arrive at a field, and there he is, Noel Noah. Noel Noah would explain to Isagi that they have training to do. He's gonna have him for a couple months, and he'll be transparent. He was paid a copious amount of money to do this, and Isagi would roll his eyes, saying that he is grateful. He is very grateful. He doesn't want him to think otherwise, but he just knew this was all about the money. And Noel Noah says that's not necessarily the case, but he just wanted to be upfront with the kid, that's just how it is. But he tells him that he wants to instill in him something that many others don't know, that football may be a test of strength, endurance, speed, but to him, it's truly a strength or a test and strength of the mind, that everything on the field can be reviewed, analyzed, and dissected in a matter of seconds if you're trained enough. Isagi would hear this and be interested once again. His interest in soccer would once again peak, but all he could think about is the reason why he's here. He's here because of his father. That's all it is. All his father wants is for him to be the best striker. Never the best son, never wanting to him have a good life. None of these things. The best striker is the only thing in sight. And Isagi would train with people like Noel Noah, people like Ronaldo, Messi, for periods of time. And he would be out of Japan for a while. And he would train with the best of the best, from strikers to defenders to midfielders, really anybody you can think of that was at the top of the top, he would train with, at least to an extent. All of these training sessions wouldn't be for years long. They would be for months, and then he would go on to the next. It seems that Igo believes that Isagi doesn't need to learn from one person. He doesn't need to become necessarily one person. That's not who he is as a striker already. From the day he started playing football, Igo has analyzed Isagi to the fullest extent. So he believes that Isagi can't necessarily be a Noel Noah just on his own. He could be an accumulation of all of them. Someone like Noel Noah, think like Noel Noah, strike like Ronaldo, anybody like that. And he continues to go down the list to himself that Isagi could do so many amazing things. And eventually, he would lead off to the very last person. The very last person he wants to speak with. He would arrive in Italy. And Italy would be an amazing place, a beautiful place in fact. and he would speak with somebody that he didn't know very well, but somebody that interested him, especially after knowing what this man truly was. His name is Mark Snuffy. Mark Snuffy, he explains that he is a man who prioritizes teamwork, strategy, patient playing. There's many things that he believes, but at the end of the day, he tells him that his own ideology is that football is a job. It's a job for him to make money. It's a job for him to live, and it's a job that is meant for them to be clear-cut and something that he has to do. And this would actually hit Isagi in a place that he didn't really understand that much at the time. And frankly, it's probably because it's the idea that, well, he's been doing this all his life, but it's never been by his choice. And Mark would even explain to him that that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just preparing him to make copious amounts of money once he does start, well, going into the national teams of Japan. At least that's the assumption, that he's going to be on the national team. And Isagi would say that that would be true. But at the same time, he doesn't need to go through all this. I mean, he could train and go somewhere else. Why should he fulfill his father's wishes and play for Japan? And Mark would think about this. That is true, kid. You could go wherever you want. I mean, in all reality, you could leave. You could leave, and as long as you keep up your training and be the best person you could be, at least in terms of a football player, you could technically go anywhere else. And Snuffy would make this very apparent, saying that a kid like him, the talent he has, and frankly, at the end of the day, the specimen he is, I mean, he can do amazing things, and he's going to do amazing things. And of course, at the end of the day, everything with all his training would be wrapped up. It would be wrapped up, and the main reason for it to be already over after a couple years of being gone is because Blue Lock is officially coming around. When Isagi would arrive back in Japan, the plane would land and he would walk out. And to make it clear, this is a private plane. A lot of money has been spent to Isagi himself, but he's come back from this journey, this excursion, a brand new person. Yeah, a completely brand new person. He not only is far better at football now, but at the same time, he's learned new things along the way. Everything that a father really should teach you, he learned from these amazing strikers and amazing football players. He didn't learn it from ego. But still, there's one thing that Isagi doesn't 100% have that ego hopes that Blue Lock will teach him. And that's having an ego and being an egoist. Yes, it might seem crazy. The son of Ego himself doesn't have an ego. But Jinpachi Ego knew that at the end of the day, he would be able to gain that ego in Blue Lock. That he would learn amazing things from various other strikers, football players first, and then he could become the egoist on top of that he knew his son could be. Isagi would finally see his father once again. It's been years, and when I mean years, it's been years on years and years. He would see him and all the bad emotions would rush back once again. But Ego would tell him that it's time. That Blue Lock is finally upon them. And that Blue Lock is truly going to be the next big thing for Japan. And that it's going to make him the best striker in the world. Not just Japan, in the world. And Isagi would hear this, in a way, he would be excited. But in another way, he would kind of think this is ridiculous. He could be the best striker somewhere else if he so chooses to do so. His talent has been measured off the charts by many. And through his travels outside of Japan, many clubs have looked into him, been interested in him, and many countries actually would want him to leave Japan and go over there. They've seen promise in Isagi. They've seen promise in everything he's able to do. Not only is he a bigger dude, able to do the things that most strikers and smaller strikers can't do, he also has an insane mind for the game of football. But he'll enter Blue Lock at the wishes of his father, and he'll see what has to come. So a location is given to him, and he would arrive at some sort of announcement hall. When he would arrive, Ego would begin speaking to everybody, but Isagi wouldn't listen, only hearing the murmurs of what other people are thinking. He would look around to see who was there, seeing some of big stature and obvious strong physiques. Others not so much, smaller in stature, but Isagi would see some people and would think that he's heard about them. But nobody has heard about Isagi, at least for the most part in Japan. Many know him around the world, internationally, but in Japan, he's still kind of a giant question mark. Ego hasn't deemed him as his son, and since he hasn't played on any teams, he kinda is just a giant unknown, a big question mark. But eventually, Ego would finish up with his annoying speech, a speech that Isagi refuses to listen to, and when the gates would open up, he would be the first person to walk through. He would walk by his father, as his father would give him a glare of, now it's your time to show Japan what a striker is. But Isagi, in his mind, can only think about the first escape out of this. He doesn't even want to be here. The idea that he'll be able to go against strong strikers and great players is cool. But frankly, other than that, he doesn't really have that much of an interest in Blue Lock at all. I mean, come on, why would he? He doesn't have anywhere near an interest in Blue Lock as his father would. But still, he would walk through and then eventually arrive in his, structured area, being that of Team Z. He doesn't know anything in terms of what's going on in Blue Lock. I mean, that would kind of defeat the purpose. But he does know his father's mischievous ways. He has assumptions about Blue Lock and assumptions about what's going to happen. But for now, he'll keep those to himself. In terms of what's going to happen next, he gets on his uniform and meets everybody there. He is seen as the top person in that group, or at least the group that he's currently in the building with. But he can assume that these, groups are kind of a little bit construed. At the end of the day, he knows his father loves to lie, so this all could be a hoax in itself. But he speaks with everybody there, and it seems like everyone is excited, ramped up, and just flat out ready to go. And there's one person, though, that catches his eye, just specifically, especially for something he said while Ego was talking, or his father was talking. It's Kira, whoever this guy is, he thinks that this game of football can be played through teamwork alone, that everything is about the team. But soon he would find out exactly what Blue Lock is, and Isagi knows what Blue Lock is. But he waves it off, saying that maybe he'll get the chance, because when the first game would start, being that of a game of tag, they have 2 minutes and 16 seconds to actually hit somebody with the ball if they're it. The idea is there's no handballs, but there's no rules outside of that. You kick it at somebody, and if it hits them, they are it. And Isagi would get the ball kicked toward him, and he would just straight up gather the ball. He wouldn't get hit, and this ball would be a heat seeker, something that is pretty fast, but he would gather it easily, and he would just hold it there. I mean, Ego would be watching this, and he would be frustrated. What is he doing? What, is he an idiot? Is he really just going to allow himself to be eliminated on purpose? He's angry. The fact that Isagi is basically throwing a temper tantrum, which is ironic because that's exactly what Ego is doing at this moment. Isagi's just holding the ball and beginning to look around. He sees many people that are interesting. He sees one that's just waking up by the name of Bachira, another by the name of Kunigami, who's a big striker and seems to be a powerful one at that. Everybody though is standing there confused as if Isagi's just analyzing everyone around him. But a little bit of Ego begins to shine. With the clock ticking down and only 30 seconds left, Isagi would finish his scan around the room and he would sigh. He would realize that as much as he would like to allow himself to get out right now, he just can't. I mean, even his own ego won't allow him to be eliminated to such chumps that are in front of him. He would kick the ball, and when he would do this, everybody felt like time was standing still. The ball he kicks, and his foot, when it strikes that ball, it's as if he shoots a rocket out of his leg, kicking it so hard toward one Kira and hits him directly in the face. Bachira would see this and would begin to laugh. He would see that Isagi is something interesting. It's not that he followed this on his own accord. It seems like he did this hesitantly, as if he didn't really want to actually win this match. And maybe that's something he'll question him about later on. But at the end of the day, the ball would spiral out of control and Kira would be unable to recover it in time, and Isagi would eliminate Kira. Kira would begin freaking out, but Isagi would tell him to shut his mouth, that he's not ready for what Blue Lock truly is. Blue Lock is to hone someone's ego, and even if he does have one that he's showing right now after being eliminated, it doesn't matter. He came here to prove that you didn't need an ego to play football, but what he's seeing right now, he assumes is just not true. You need some sort of ego, but even with that said, he wouldn't have made it that far anyways. Of course, Kira would be pissed by this, and he would even take a swing at Isagi just out of instinct, as if he's so mad and his ego's finally taking over, but Isagi would easily block it and throw him to the side and kick him toward the door, telling him that is not one single thing in this world that would allow him to get back to this place. He tells him that he did him a favor, that Blue Lock is just not for him, that it's time to lock off. As he says this, everyone stares at him. Lock off? They all think that's exactly what Ego said. Why does it feel as if this kid is so similar to Ego just in that little glimpse? But then their idea of this would fade away almost instantly after, because Isagi's personality would change so drastically. It was as if he didn't want to be like his father, so he would get small glimpses of it when certain things like this would even happen. But Ego would eventually come up on the screen and say that Kira is now gone. But with that said, there's more to come. There's now 11 of them, exactly enough to make one football team. And he explains further that they're going to be taking on other people or other groups very, very soon. So they're going to have to work together, but at the same time and on other occasions even betray each other. Isagi would ask how many matches there are, and Ego would say that it doesn't necessarily matter at this point, but there are 4 matches. And he explains the scoring breakdown, saying that the top 2 teams with the most wins will pass on through, but other than that, the number 1 striker, or the one who has the most goals from each team, will be allowed to go through even though their team didn't do the best. So it comes into play. Do you want to score the most goals, or do you want to go for wins? Isagi would shake his head. Of course, you're bringing up some sort of dilemma. Ridiculous. The TV would turn off and everybody would look at him strangely and ask him, what does he mean by that? That, of course, as if he knew Ego would do that, and Isagi would wave them off, saying that it's not necessarily important. His morals are kind of getting in his way at the moment. He's having a big conflict. He could bomb out. He could straight up sabotage his team to the point that he just is allowed to leave and he can leave entirely. But what happens if he does that? All of the dreams of the other players crash and burn with him. He shakes his head and he sighs. He wishes he didn't meet those other strikers. He wishes now that he didn't meet those other people. Those other people, Noel Noah, Ronaldo, Messi, they all believed in some form of teamwork. And they all believed in some sort of morality. Even to an extent, Mark Snuffy, the last person he spoke to, someone who he related to relatively greatly, he believed in some sort of morality as well, believed in that teamwork, believed in that communication and relationship with your teammates. He feels, or Isagi feels, that maybe he can't just crash and burn. And the first game would prove that, because the first goal would be easily made by one Baro, seemingly the king of the field. But Isagi would allow him to score this goal, and he would see the faces of everyone around him, see that they are distraught, frustrated, and Isagi would more or less feel this within his core. Is he worse than everything and everyone if he just allows for this to happen? Isagi would think about this and then stop for a second. He would look around, looking toward Bachira, looking toward Kunigami, looking toward many others that are currently on that field. And he tells them that if they want to win, follow his lead. And they're confused. Many of them are. They're saying that no, they're going to get their own goals, and many others, they are very selfish about it. But Isagi says that they need to find the fine line between selfish football and teamwork football. Yes, all of them are strikers, but if they all fit a certain role and they begin to work together, they will dominate this team. And of course, they're skeptical about this, but Isagi says that if they allow him to take lead, he won't let Baro score another goal. And Baro would laugh at this, saying that there is no stopping him. Come on, what is he, some donkey? And everybody looks at Isagi once again and says that if Baro doesn't score another goal, at least until halftime, they'll listen to him. And Isagi says that until that point that Baro supposedly should be scoring a goal, they have to listen to him. They all finally give in to this idea, believing that Isagi is way over his head, but they don't know what he's truly capable of. So the first pass in is easy. Isagi gets the ball from Bachira and he would begin marching forward. It seems as if everybody kind of floods in its own way, but Isagi's able to easily break through the defense. And when I mean easily, I mean easily. He immediately looks for an outlet pass, seeing one Raichi sprinting down the field. Passing it easily over to him, Raichi looks for a goal. But it seems as if Raichi begins to get covered up by a massive figure by the name of Baro. Baro would cover him up as if he's playing defense, and Raichi, out of instincts it seems, would pass the ball. But it's not necessarily instincts. It's as if Isagi was screaming at him without even saying a word to pass it to him. It would be one pass and Isagi would score. It is now 1-1. Raichi would be confused. How did he get him to do that? How did he get him to pass the ball like that? And Isagi shakes his head, saying that it's teamwork and to not worry about it. He'll live up to his end of the bargain. And that's exactly what he would do. Baro would come charging forward and Isagi would look at him. You are way too predictable, King. He would steal the ball and he would immediately go bolting off, outlet passing to Kunigami, and Kunigami would shoot, scoring another goal, putting them up 2-1. Everybody's in complete shock. Every single last person. How? This guy, he was serious. He literally said that he would shut down one of their best players, if not the best player on their team. Someone that looks like is unstoppable. Someone that looks like that would be completely and utterly dominant. But Isagi, he makes him look like a joke. He makes him look like he's nothing, as if he's the bottom of the barrel. And soon, this would be extremely relevant information, because every time Bato would come in and try to do anything, he would get the ball stolen. Isagi would pass the ball around, and without the proper coordination though, it would become a struggle to score if he's not leading the forefront. And eventually people would realize that Isagi himself creates plays for other players. And it seems like he knows the field better than anybody could possibly even imagine. Ego was watching this, and he knows that his son is on a different level. Everything he did, everything he wanted out of him, this is great. This is amazing. Look at him go. It's so simple for him. The game of football is simple for him. And easy passes to one Gagamaru for an amazing goal, a leaping goal that leading into him getting him a header. An easy goal for him, an easy goal for Bachira soon to come, giving Bachira a one-on-one, and we all know how deadly of a combo that is. And the score would begin to get ran up past halftime, and then eventually toward the end of the game, the score would end up being a 8-1 domination. Isagi's team would dominate, and it wouldn't even be close. Bato would stand there in complete shock. How was he able to do all those things? He doesn't understand. How is he able to dominate such a way? Yes, he's a big dude. He might be actually almost the same size as Bato. He has pretty decent genetics, but he's probably, I would say, a little bit smaller than him. He had good genetics more for his mother's side, but still, he's definitely bigger than what he was in canon. With that said though, that's not even necessarily why he would even beat Bato. How is he even able to do such things? Bato just feels that maybe he's just too simplistic. Maybe he just doesn't understand. And Isagi at the end of the game would walk up to him, and he would say that Bato needs to open his eyes more, a lot more. That just because one thing isn't working over and over again, well, he'll have to find new things. There's an idea of a formula that would guarantee him goals, and of course, he believes that Bato has that. But if someone doesn't allow him in a certain area, a certain spot, that formula begins to get ripped to shreds and thrown into the fire. He needs to think about that, because there's far, far, far more things and more complex things in this game of football that he needs to be thinking about. Isagi would leave, and he just would give his advice to his best of his ability. And when he would arrive back and they would celebrate and more or less get all settled in, he would go to an area by himself, and he would get a call on a phone. He would look, and he would see that it's his father. It's a little cheap phone, something that he was able to sneak in on his father's request. And his father would explain to him certain things that he saw during the game. And he says that he's truly made a bunch of schmucks into an elite team, and it's something that he's excited to see more of. Isagi says that he's not doing this for him, he's doing it for them. At the end of the day, if he wasn't put in a team like this, he would just bomb out on purpose. He doesn't even want to be here. He doesn't need Blue Lock to get better, and he damn well doesn't need his father anymore. And Ego would tell him that he did all of this for him. He did all of this to make Isagi the best striker in the world, but Isagi yells and said he did it for him, that he did it for himself. He wanted his son to be the best striker ever. He wanted to watch his son be the best striker ever. He did this for his own greed, his own glory. He didn't do it for his own son's success. He did it for himself. Isagi says once again that any chance he gets, he'll bomb out. He doesn't care. And Ego wants him to reconsider that this could truly give him more opportunities than he would even imagine. That he doesn't want to just jump into this bombing out idea. He doesn't want to just throw it all away. Isagi says that idea, the idea of bombing out, is because of Ego, is because of his lack of attention to Isagi. We're talking about a kid that's been training practically all his life, and part of that, a good chunk of it, was without his father, the same father that put him through a extreme regimen, and Isagi would be frustrated with it. He says that for now, he won't allow himself to bomb out. He just won't. He won't force his team into that situation, and he won't allow them to bomb out because of his actions. Isagi says that he'll make all of them the best players that he's ever seen in his life, and then he can choose from them. He can make his striker decision from them. And Ego says that they won't be good enough, and they won't be even close to what Isagi is. And Isagi shrugs, and he says that that's an issue he's going to have to figure out. But he'll give him the proper people to truly choose from. But other than that, that's the last favor he'll get from his son. He hangs up, and he would go back to everyone else. Nobody knowing about what just transpired, and nobody knowing about the conversation that just ensued. The next game would then happen. The second game would be almost the same as the first, just in the regard of domination. Isagi's team would win by a large margin, but Isagi would be able to read the field so easily, and there's a reason for that. He outclasses everybody here at this moment. But here's the thing. Isagi's goal is to make everybody on his team the best they possibly can. So he tries to evolve people like Kunigami, Bachira, Gagamaru, freaking Raichi. Anybody you can think of that is on that team, that's all he can think about, is hone their skills, see what their skills are, and hone them to the absolute best. Like he said, iron sharpens iron, so that's all he can think about. Give his father the choice of the best striker possible, and then after that, he'll leave. Whatever's next is to come, he'll leave. And Isagi would have this in mind entirely, but he would even think about someone else, someone by the name of Nico. Nico is something amazing. He realizes this because Nico can see the field like he sees the field, and he would eventually even tell him this during one of the matches. During this second match, he would see that Nico would try to set up passes for one of the other players on his team, but he would tell Nico that sometimes you can't just let someone else shoot the goals for you. Sometimes you got to take it upon yourself to make your own goals, make yourself better, and that would lead to other people being that much better as well. And hearing this, Nico would be kind of taken back by it, but at the same time, he wouldn't even know what to say. I mean, they're kind of getting beat senseless in terms of the game. Like, this game's worse than the Bato game. I mean, at least Bato physically could somewhat keep up, and just in the physicality realm could kind of stay in front of people. But other than that, there's nothing else to be said. Isagi is more or less dominating. He's showing exactly why he could be the best striker in Japan, but he wants to make his father feel as if there is no way his own son is going to stay here, and there's no way that he's going to have Isagi as the striker that he always wanted. Yes, that's the end of game 2. Domination would be the name of the game for that game. 12-0. And it would be simple enough. Isagi, all he wanted to do was make everyone else around him better, and it seems as if he was able to do just that. And that's all he can think about for game 3. But for now, they celebrate. They celebrate and they're all happy. But Ego is currently watching, and he is in his own head, thinking that his own son isn't going to stay in Blue Lock, that his own son is threatening a bombing out after everything he did. But he even talks to his assistant, asking where he went wrong. And she would bring up various reasons and various things that he did wrong, and Ego would sit there. My own son, huh? I really can't believe this. Maybe I can convince him otherwise, but I just don't know how. But we can come up with something. We need to come up with something. Because my son, well, he's truly the striker Japan deserves. Isagi wants one thing and one thing only: to make the greatest striker ever. It might sound odd, counterintuitive in fact, because at the end of the day, Blue Lock is made to create the greatest striker, to make the greatest striker. So why would he want to create the greatest striker out of someone else? Well, there's multiple reasons for that. The main reason, his father, Jinpachi ego. He despises him. Believing that he's just a pawn in this game, Isagi doesn't care that much for himself, and he actually cares more about getting these other people to the next level. So that's what he does. In between the next match, he actually begins to train with one Kunigami. He begins to tell him that his body type, his physique, and possibly soon his way of playing football is very similar to someone he trained with, and that being Noel Noah. And Kunigami would be completely shocked. He's trained with Noel Noah? And Isagi says that he's trained with a lot of amazing football players. So don't get too psyched out by that, but this is what matters. He explains to Kunigami everything that Noel Noah has taught him. And on top of that, shows Kunigami various ways that he can up his game. Not only just extending his range, but utilizing his freakish ability and body. Yes, they're pretty big. Both of them are pretty big. I mean, Isagi is almost as big as Kunigami, if not the same size, and he's able to kind of show Kunigami different ways to use both of his feet in striking, and also being able to be a threat from beyond just his normal range. This is something he needs to realize. And on top of that, he'll need to work on his own dribbling. So with Kunigami there, Isagi actually brings out one Bachira. Yes, Bachira. He believes that Bachira's way of football is so unique to the point that he could be helpful not only for himself in terms of just being better at football, but on top of that helping others like Kunigami. He begins to explain certain things to Bachira and things he's learned personally, and Bachira kind of wants to dive into the idea of having fun, loving soccer the way he knows he always has throughout his life. Isagi would agree to this, saying that these are important, very important things, and he'll need to utilize these important things for the betterment of himself. So in doing this, he helps two players, Kunigami and also Bachira, expand to the next level. But he would be able to help a third very soon, but not on the football field, actually in a film room while he's struggling with the idea of his knee. Chiguri is struggling with the idea of running on his knee, trying, and frankly he's waiting for himself to die out. But Isagi tries to get him to think otherwise. Don't just let your career fade away, and just don't lose yourself in this. He explains to him that there's no way that someone as talented as him should allow this to occur. He says that he might want to kind of bow out of Blue Lock, and he'll admit that right now he does. And in which Chiguri is completely shocked. Why would he want to do that? He's so well talented. And Isagi shakes his head, saying that he'll tell him something that he hasn't told anybody yet. That Ego is his father. And yes, he's gotten special treatment in terms of getting better at football. He's trained with the best of the best, but he doesn't want to be here. He's been trained, and when at birth, he was molded to be a striker, molded to be a football player. He was never given the choice. But Chiguri has the choice to resume to the thing he loves, has the choice to resume on the sport that he truly loves. And he hopes that he makes that choice properly. Isagi would be done speaking, and he would head back to their room. They would all go to sleep, and one night would pass, and it would be time for their third match. This third match would more or less put them in position to guarantee themselves a spot in the next round. Isagi would be happy about this, but not happy about it for himself. Still, he makes sure that this game means everything to every single person there. He wants to make sure everyone is involved and everyone gets the right ideas. The game would begin, and Isagi would quickly see what's going on. would quickly see what the plan is for the other team and how they like to play their game. What they like to do is to have the two twins, the Wanama twins, kind of run buck wild, and more or less their chemistry can carry them throughout the game. But Isagi uses someone on his own team to actually shut this down entirely. He grabs Yoichi and throws him into a position. As Yoichi stumbles forward, he's confused. But as he gathers himself, he realizes that he's in the perfect position to counter the Wanama twins charging forward. As he steps up to basically conflict with one of the Wanama twins, immediately Isagi would steal the ball. As he steals it, he would look upward as he sees Kunigami, launching the ball forward, and Kunigami is already in his perfect range. But this range is even deeper than his one originally. No longer being that of 30 meters, he's actually way deeper than that. And he launches the ball straight toward the net, and he scores and picks up the first goal immediately. Everyone is impressed by the fact that Kunigami has expanded his range so quickly. It makes their entire team that dynamic. And frankly, the Wanama twins are in complete shock. They're not really understanding how to even go about this. It seems like they read up on them so well to the point that Isagi has them locked down entirely. But in all consideration, Isagi hasn't really even read up on them at all. He just understands everything that's happening all at once. He sees the entire field through a different set of eyes. It's as if he is truly the god of this field. There's a reason why Ego has raised him in such a way. There's a reason why Ego wants him to be the #1 striker. He has vision that no one else would even believe in. His body type is close to one of Noel Noah, and on top of that, his striking ability and power is off the charts. He's practically a pretty good specimen, not to the point of being the same as Bado and Kunigami, but good enough specimen to the point that he's outclassing all of them because of his vision. His vision on top of his prowess to basically score wherever he is on the field affects everybody and everything. But at the same time, well, he barely even utilizes any of it. And the reason for that, at least in terms of his striking ability, is because he doesn't care about Blue Lock. He still doesn't care about his father's invention. He wants to do whatever he wants at this moment. Actually, he's considered going to another country and playing for them. He believes that he can add insane amounts of just progress to everybody there. He thinks he's already on that level. And even if he's not exactly on that level, he'll be on that level quicker than anybody could possibly imagine. He's young, but he's extremely talented. More talented than many even could possibly imagine. So Isagi is just helping his team out. The Wanama twins are just another hurdle. So he begins to pick out every single person he can. In terms of Yoichi, he continues to work with him, shutting down the Wanama twins, showing him a brand new way to truly play defense. It's actually kind of odd for him. He's getting this mass amount of satisfaction from everything he's doing at this moment. Yes, in the beginning, it was just to make the best strikers possible, so that when he left, he wouldn't completely leave his father high and dry. Look, he's mad at him, and he doesn't like him very much, but he doesn't think so low of his father that he's going to completely ruin everything and anything he possibly can. He wants to work on his own life. He wants to be a football player on his own terms. So, yes, he is creating the best striker possible for him, but at the same time, he's not gonna, just allow what's a Blue Lock to completely shatter entirely. So he'll hope that someone out of whoever he's helping get better can actually get better to the point that, yeah, they can be the best striker there. But like I said, He teaches Raichi basically through action how to stop the Wanama twins, showing Raichi a new way of playing football. They would steal it from them and easily get outlet passes to people like Bachira, people like Kunigami, and eventually someone else would hop on board. Speed that was undeniable, speed that was unconceivable, and off of a steal that they get on the Wanama twins, Isagi would feel something. A tremble, an earthquake running down the left sideline, and he would kick the ball to the open area, and he would be wondering to himself why he felt and smelt a goal from this distance. But he would see Chiguri full speed running at insane heights, and he would just smile. Now they have another striker that has the potential of being the best in Blue Lock. He watches as Chiguri scores with relative ease, and the speed he has is amazing. The score continues to run up, and frankly, he continues to work with Kunigami, with Bachira, with Chiguri, bringing the best out of all of them. And like I said, he's finding quite a good amount of enjoyment in this. And this would end the third game, and this would end, well, the entirety of this section, more or less. Now that they have 3 wins, and it's 3 wins to more or less 3 wins with Team V, it's kind of pretty obvious what's going to happen next. Isagi knows that they already made it and they're already going to pass on through. So there's a bit of a debate now on what they want to do. They might have beaten the Wanama twins and Team W in a pretty spectacular fashion, being that it was practically a complete domination and actually 8-0 by the end of it. But now they face Team V. But at the same time, does it really matter what happens? I mean, Isagi even thinks about this as well. During training and helping others get better, in which in turn would make him better as well, following the ideas of Mark Snuffy, someone that he has idolized throughout this time. He continues to work with these people, and they get better over and over again. People like Bachira continues to enjoy soccer to the fullest extent. Kunigami continues to work on his physique and also his striking from all ranges, even using both his left and his right foot. Now, adding this to his arsenal is something just outlandishly important for his progression. Isagi would then speak to all of them, though. It's about 5 to 6 hours before the game against Team V. They have a breakfast to go to, and then they'll be heading onto the field hours after that. But he thinks to himself that he wants to speak with these people, speak with the people of Team Z, and he does just that. He speaks with them, telling them something that maybe they necessarily don't want to hear, but he's gonna be honest with them. He says that he's already told Chiguri this, and he said this out of necessity to try and get him better, but he wants to tell them all that he is Jinpachi Ego's son, the creator of Blue Lock, and that this whole thing was created for him. And some of them would actually react shocked, but others would react as if they knew it. They call it out and saying that they knew that he looked very similar to the creator of Blue Lock. He looked very similar to Ego, but that's insane. They didn't think that it was completely true, but now that he's saying it, it all makes sense. All of the special privileges he had. And he says that yes, he did have privileges. He had a lot of them. Training with the best of the best all around the world. People like Noel Noah. People like Mark Snuffy, people like Messi and Ronaldo. He trained with all of them. But these privileges came at a cost. He never wanted to do this version of football. He, yes, enjoyed the game, but he was forced into this way of life. He was forced into being the football player he is right now. And maybe some of them don't understand the way he feels. Maybe some of them wish that they had the opportunities that he had, and he does wish that he could have transferred that off to those people, or off to them. And as he's saying this, Kunigami would step up and cut him off, saying that they did have the opportunities just like him, and he's confused. And Kunigami explains that yes, they didn't have the opportunities as drastic as he did, but he's been teaching and helping them this entire time, teaching them all of the philosophies, all of the techniques, and everything he's learned from people all around the world, the top football players all around the world. So in a way, they trained with them as well in, an indirect way. And some of them are a little taken back by this, that Blue Lock isn't even necessarily made to find the best striker. It's actually just made to hone the skills of the person that's standing in front of them. And this does make them feel some type of way. And they even admit that. And Isagi says that he agrees. It should make them feel some type of way. But that is why he's here right now. That is why he's trying to make all of them so much better than they even were when they stepped in. He wants them to have the chance to become the best striker in Japan, because he wants to bow out. He wants to leave. And he doesn't want to be in Blue Lock anymore. In terms of why he didn't bow out sooner, he says that the reason he didn't bow out in the tag was because, he'll be honest, there was a part of him that was like his father. The ego side of him was telling him that many of them were nowhere near the player that he was. So he couldn't just allow himself to lose just like that, especially to someone like Kira, someone that wasn't that good in his opinion, but at the same time believed that he could really change and start this revolution over Blue Lock and prove it all wrong. And he apologizes for that. He said that his father, the father side of him, more or less took over, and that's why he didn't bow out during the tag event. And he then further explains that he wasn't going to bow out during the games. These games are too crucial for them to pass on to the next event, and he wasn't going to basically sabotage 10 other people for no reason. And actually someone in the group would kind of look down, thinking to himself that he even considered this during this time, considered actually sabotaging. But luckily Isagi was so good that he didn't have to. But he doesn't reveal that to anybody else, at least not at this moment. Isagi though would apologize to them for keeping this secret, but most of them say that they don't care, that it's fine. But they don't like the idea of him just bowing out, leaving. What is he going to do? He can't be a striker in Japan anymore. But then he says that he might not be able to be a striker in Japan, and especially for the, the actual team, but he can be a striker somewhere else. They're all confused. Wait, does he mean that he'll leave? And Isagi nods his head. He says that he already has the ability to leave, and he's already set many things in motion so that if he, decides to, he can leave. And everybody's standing there in shock. But why? He could truly be the best striker in Japan, lead Japan's national team. Why just leave? And he says it once again. He says that throughout this entire time, all he's been is a puppet. And it's unfortunate to say that, but it's the truth. He's been a puppet to his own father. His own father created him so that he could be the best striker in Japan, the best striker in the world. But he never created him because he loved the idea of having a son. He loved the idea of taking care of a child. Even at a young age, he was never around. All he would do is leave the football regimen, and that was it. And everybody would stand there in complete shock. But they're not the only ones listening to this. Ego is as well. He's sitting there in complete shock himself, thinking that maybe Isagi's right. Maybe he really did fail as a father. Yes, he was trying to create the best football player he possibly could, but maybe he failed as a father as well. And this isn't something that he can necessarily take back now. I mean, it's not that simple. He can't just say bibbidi bobbidi boo and boom, everything's okay now. That's just not how life works. So the damage is already done. But he just hopes that his son makes the right decision for his own well-being. But at the same time, he wants his son to stay here. He did all of this for him, for Isagi. He did all of it for him. He's the blood of Ego, and he wants his son to fulfill the prophecy and be Blue Lock's prodigal son, be Blue Lock's best striker. But Isagi seems to have more or less made up his mind, and the whole team kind of tells him that he shouldn't just drop out, that he could do so much here, and he says that all of them can do so much here. He's going to pass on as much knowledge as he can to each and every one of them, and he knows that he's not some guru at that matter of fact, and he knows that in a way this is egoist mentality too, to feel that he needs to teach everybody new things. But he's going to teach all of them as much as possible throughout the time they have, and throughout the last game they have, and then at the end of it all, he's going to take his leave. And this would set everybody in a frenzy, not knowing what to say. Some mad, some sad, some frustrated, some glad in a way that they don't have to deal with him as a competition in the near future. But many of them say that they have a match to win, and they all go and eat some breakfast and get ready for that said match. And Isagi would even meet some of the players on that next team, on Team V. He would meet players like Nagi and Ryo. Meeting them would actually put into perspective that his team is not the only one that has spectacular talent. He can tell deep down Nagi is a prodigy, someone that is just the next level. But he can tell that Nagi has absolutely zero work ethic, and it does frustrate him to a certain extent. And he even speaks with Nagi slightly, and Nagi would more or less be kind of in the same ballpark of Isagi, but at the same time it would be for different reasons. Nagi just doesn't want to be here. He doesn't care about football, and he doesn't care in general. And he sees something in Nagi in terms of talent that's, well, is unmatched, unrivaled. But still, some people, when they make a decision, there is no stopping them from, well, fulfilling that decision. So the next match would then finally ensue. Team Z versus Team V. And Isagi is still in the mindset of making everyone around him that much better. He immediately sets Gagamaru up for a beautiful pass so that he can header the ball in. But this time around, the goal would be scored. And Ryo, as the ball is lined up toward the middle, he would ask Nagi if he wants to try that move out as well. And Isagi would see Nagi in a new light. It seems as if Nagi himself is so fast on picking up things, so fast at learning and executing. It seems like he'll definitely be something. And as he watches the same play unfold, he realizes this. He watches as Nagi does the same exact play as Gagamaru did, but this time around he leaps up into the sky and controls the ball mid-air with one foot, trapping it on his single foot, and mid-air landing and kicking the ball as well. Everybody's in shock, and it turns it into a 1-1 game, and Isagi looks at Nagi and thinks that he's just overwhelmingly talented. It's obvious. And Isagi would ask Nagi why he doesn't take football more seriously. And Nagi would say that he doesn't care for the game as much. And, well, he doesn't, that's literally the only answer he'll get. That's about it. Ryo says that he has to drag Nagi to practices, drag him to workouts. And Isagi would shake his head and say that with the talent he has, it's kind of a waste. But still, it happens. Some people just don't love the game like many others do. He would smile as he says this and kick the ball to Bachira, saying that nobody loves the game like that guy does. And everybody's confused. What, one person? And Bachira begins to dribble through everybody. New emotions have been awakened for everybody. New mentalities have been awakened. Their goal now is to achieve greater abilities than Isagi himself. He may be leaving, but the idea that someone like Isagi is that good, and if he was here, they would all lose, is something that is driving all of them to be better. Bachira would then score the second goal for Team Z, and everybody on Team V would realize that this match is going to be far more difficult than they can possibly imagine. In terms of, well, Nagi and the Reo and also Zentetsu connection, it seems as if it begins to get shut down slowly but surely. Isagi begins to mark Nagi and tells him that he's going to have to evolve far more than what he is right now to actually see more of the field in a bigger perspective, telling him that he's going to have to truly control this field more than he ever has before. Use that talent, Mr. Prodigy. He wants to see it. Isagi continues to guard Nagi, locking him down entirely and forcing the ball to Zentetsu. It's as if it's a game of who's the bigger threat, and Nagi is the one with the giant red symbol draped over him. Everybody knows that Nagi is the threat. Everybody knows that Nagi is going to be the focal point of this offense. So with their impeccable teamwork, they begin to section off the field, trying to eliminate Nagi entirely, and this works for a good chunk of the game. We're talking about 75% of the game. It works very well, but eventually Nagi begins to evolve, and Isagi can see this. He can sense it. He can feel everything, and he understands that Nagi is taking his game to the very next level. Nagi is a different type of player. He's someone that is interesting, but at the same time unique. Isagi knows this. He knows that Nagi is just a talented soccer player. He has amazing reflexes, good speed, insane jumping ability, but he's just lazy, unmotivated. So when he begins to evolve, the jumps he begins to take, the leaps and bounds of experience he begins to absorb is insane. So insane to the point that a Reo Hail Mary pass would land in Nagi's lap, and so much so that Isagi couldn't even stop it. The way that Nagi traps the ball, the way that he's utilizing his body, it's far different than what it was at the beginning of the game. Isagi is not adjusted quite to it yet and tries to more or less recreate and reanalyze the situation. As he does this, though, it seems like Nagi is about to shoot. He's about to sling that ball at insane speeds while mid-air. He relaxes his body and shoots the ball, but as he does, there's somebody else on the field that reads the movement, somebody else that has been inspired by Isagi and everybody else there. Yoichi comes barreling in and kicks the ball up, and it seems to have just saved the ball from shooting through the goal just in time. It doesn't necessarily matter. Of course, Team Z is actually up quite a bit at this point, a couple goals at least. So we're talking probably 4-1. But Nagi thought that he'd broken through. He finally made it through, but he didn't. He fell just short. And Isagi would look at him and smirk slightly, saying that he's really amazing. He is. But unfortunately, he can't do it all by himself, especially when playing 11 on 11. It just doesn't work that way. Isagi tells him that having a team around him and utilizing them to their fullest strengths is just as important as finding his own goal and evolving himself. And that is the lesson that Nagi needed to hear. He needed to hear this from Isagi, and a realization would flow over him that this guy, he needs to learn, he needs to absorb more, he needs to know more, like now. And Isagi would kind of just smile at the idea that Nagi's face would be completely in an utter shock. But the game would soon fall over, and the game would fall in favor of Team Z. And Isagi's team would officially be the winners of the first selection. But of course, Team V would get through as well. I mean, they were the second highest in terms of wins and also had insane point totals. With that said though, everything seems to wrap up overall. It seems like the first selection is coming to a close, and whatever's to come is going to be right after some extreme physical, more or less physical alterations. So they begin their training, working hard, and Isagi doesn't have any problems with this. He's been doing stuff like this all his life, but now he's just looking for his way out, his way to leave. But there's something deep down inside of him, way deep down, that makes him feel that maybe he shouldn't. Yes, his whole goal was to leave and not really be here in Blue Lock. Show his father exactly what he's made of. Go prove himself somewhere else and show that, yes, he is the number one striker. But he became the number one striker for different reasons. He didn't want everything to be handed to him in a way. But at the same time, he understands that he did have to work for it. But at the same time, he didn't want his whole life to just be football. He didn't want his whole life to revolve around this. And he never even had a say in it. So, at this point, he has a choice. Does he sabotage himself and escape Blue Lock and follow along the path that is no longer set for him? Or does he stay on the path that his father would want? Stay on the path of Blue Lock and continue to be Blue Lock's prodigal son? Now, that's an answer for the next part. And that is the end of part 2 of What If Isagi Was Igo's Son. And I want to give a little bit of a thing to you guys. What would you want to see? Do you want to see Isagi bomb out of Blue Lock on purpose and maybe follow along on a different storyline and a different journey in the near future? Or do you want him to follow along in Blue Lock and find his way through and lead Blue Lock exactly how Igo would have wanted? The second selection is soon to come. But first off, Isagi needs to go against this invention. An invention that is made for Blue Lock. And this is Blue Lock Man. It's a holographic goalkeeper. More or less a pretty good goalkeeper that is supposed to expand the striker's abilities even further. And the strikers must score 100 goals within a 90-minute period. And if they don't, then they don't pass. But if they do, then, well, they're kicked out of Blue Lock. And this right here seems to be the best chance for Isagi to go out, to leave Blue Lock finally. But there's one more person, one last person he wanted to help before this was all said and done and all over. One last person. So when he's at his 99th goal, about to hit his 100th, he's kind of in a state of debating with himself. He's debating if he truly wants to shoot this last goal or just take this easy way out and leave now. He would just sigh and he would kick the ball one last time as he would score his 100th goal. Igo would be watching and he would be happy to see this. His son didn't just go out on that term. He really thought he would. Maybe this means he changed his mind. Maybe this means that he's not going to just, leave. And as Isagi's walking out, he stops and looks back in the room and he begins to speak. I know you're listening, Father. This doesn't mean anything. This doesn't mean that I'm not going to just quit Blue Lock and go somewhere else. I see something else in my future. This isn't my future. And he continues to just leave. Igo sits there in a dilemma of his own. Yes, Isagi has taken it graciously to more or less allow himself to kind of teach other people to get better and get better at being a striker. But he wants his son to be the greatest striker in Japan. That's what he wants. But it seems like he's still in the same frame of mind and still in the same mindset that he was in the first place. Isagi would exit the Blue Lock's Blue Lock Man, section of the second selection, or at least the thing right before the second selection, to basically weed out some of those extra people. And when he would arrive, he would see many there. He would look around and he would see many people. Many people. He would think that he did take that extra bit of time to kind of debate with himself, and he looks around and eventually sees Nagi, and that is the exact person he was thinking about. He would walk over and he would tell Nagi that he's going to help him evolve. He'll evolve even greater than the prodigy he is now, and he tells him that it won't be an easy task, but it will be one that they will do together. In which Ryo is confused, immediately saying that they already have someone to join them, but Nagi says that that's not the case. He wants Isagi to join them now. In which Isagi kind of just agrees to this. But at the same time, when Bachira comes out and actually sees them, he questions if he can't join as well. In which Isagi looks toward Nagi and thinks to himself that maybe the best choice and the best course of action is to have Bachira on this team. But he does kind of go through his own head. The rules are pretty simple. It's if basically if they lose, they steal one person. So having Bachira on his team actually would be counterintuitive for what he wants to do. He would tell Bachira that he's going to go with Nagi and Ryo, and he tells Bachira to team up with people like Kunigami, that they will get in and get through just fine. Bachira would be confused. No. He would then say that he wants to be with Isagi. He wants to make sure they win so Isagi stays in Blue Lock. But Isagi would shake his head, saying that he has no intention of staying in Blue Lock. But he does believe that they'll meet sometime soon, sooner than he could imagine. In which Bachira would be frustrated about this. No, this is ridiculous. He can't just leave. Bachira has made an attachment to Isagi, and even if he didn't want to admit it fully, Bachira has become dependent on Isagi. He wants him to be there so he can evolve even greater. But Isagi tells him that he's going to help Nagi evolve, and then he'll be seeing his way out. But Nagi's confused as well. Same thing with Ryo. What is he talking about on his way out? He's just going to leave? In which Isagi says that he's going to help whoever he needs to evolve and get better as a striker, and then he's going to throw the match so that they don't pick him, but they pick both of them, so they're secure in going to the next round. In which they're both shocked to hear this, but Nagi shakes his head. He doesn't want that. He doesn't care about evolving if that means that someone like Isagi is just going to leave. I mean, what's the point of playing football if someone as great as him is just going to quit? That doesn't make sense. And Nagi begins to reflect on himself. This might be even true for himself to a certain extent, but all he can think about is the idea that Isagi, someone that he's been dying to play with so far, is just going to quit on them and leave. Isagi shrugs and basically tells them that it's either this, that they go together as a three, and they guarantee that they get picked up by other teams, or he goes with two random people and he just throws the game. And, well, they have to make it on their own. In which Nagi and Ryo stand there and kind of contemplate this. Bachira thinking that maybe it is the best choice for him to go with someone like Kunigami, maybe even Chiguri. And frankly, Isagi has shown them the blueprint, has shown them what they're capable of. And Isagi would tell Nagi and Ryo one last time that if they don't want to go, they don't have to. But at the same time, well, it's their choice. And eventually, the decision is made. Isagi will go with Nagi and Ryo. And the decision is final. And it's completely in the favor of the two of them. And Isagi makes this clear. He says that it's going to be beneficial for both of them. And he says that they will guarantee, he guarantees them, statistically speaking at least, it just gives them such a high chance at going on to the next round. In which finally they would just agree to it, and finally they would just say okay. But here's the thing, and here's the very last thing. Isagi would go in with the three of them, or with two of them, three in total, and as he walks in, he sees another team. he sees a team of Rin, Junpei, and also Tokumitsu. But he's about to actually approach them, saying that he wants to compete with them, but a team would come in from right behind them. A team of Kunigami, Bachira, and Chiguri. They would say that it's not as simple as he believes. They're not gonna just allow him to leave, so he'll need to make a choice. Will he allow them to win? And he knows damn well that they will make sure to pick Isagi, or will he try his best with Nagi and Ryo to defeat them? In which Isagi would be put even in a deeper dilemma. Come on, guys, seriously, don't do this. I mean, we have to accept the match as well, so it's not that simple anyways. In which Nagi and Ryo look at each other and say that, well, majority rules, we accept the match. In which this would infuriate Isagi, but Ego's watching from his little computer and he would be smiling. This is great. Fantastic. They're going to make sure that Isagi gets on to the next round. And if Isagi's with Bachira, Chiguri, and Kunigami, there's no way he'll throw the game, especially if he's with them. And Ego's smile would grow, and he would think to himself that this is perfect. This is perfect. His most elite striker, Isagi, he'll be perfect for whatever's to come. And he assumes that he'll need the amazing striker Isagi is on the field sooner rather than later. Isagi would just sigh. Are you serious, guys? Majority rules? You gotta be kidding me. Do you guys even understand why I want to do this? Why I want to leave? Guys, seriously, this isn't for me. I'm just a pawn. That's all I am. And eventually everybody would say that they don't believe so. That yes, in a way, he might see it that way. And yes, he's been trained from practically birth to be the best striker ever. But he's not a pawn. He's the king. That's why he's been kind of protected, trained, and honed. He's the king, but has the queen's abilities. That is what Isagi is. And he needs to understand that. And that he needs to face this threat head on. Because yes, Ego might be his father, and yes, this may be his life's work, but at the same time, it doesn't mean it has to be his legacy. Who says that he can't use Blue Lock for his own good being and his own just progress? Who says he can't use Blue Lock and then leave and go and join a different team, join someone else? And then, well, say screw Japan. And of course, this would be enticing to Isagi, but he believes that the best way for him is to just drop out of Blue Lock entirely. But he doesn't have a choice right now. It seems that the first match will be Isagi, Nagi, Ryo versus Kunigami, Bachira, and Chiguri. And this matchup is an interesting one. A matchup that Isagi is debating with even in his own mind. Who does he cover? It's 3-on-3, and the very first thing is kickoff. Isagi's team gets the ball first, and Isagi says that he's not going to just allow them to win easily. If anything, he's frustrated that they put him in this situation, so he won't just roll over and die. From kickoff, he would score a goal, a beautiful one, pinning it in the top right of the net. A beautiful goal that Blue Lock Man misses by a mile, and everybody stands there, and they are smirking. Yes, smirking, even in adversity. Isagi is someone that has helped them so much, so the fact is, they've never gone against him when he's like this, and they want to see what he's truly about. Bachira would get the early pass off, and he would take the ball, and he would begin dribbling up toward Isagi. Isagi would read him like a book, and he would be able to keep up, or at least that's what he thinks. Isagi doesn't realize this, but Bachira, he's been hiding things from them as well. Something even crazier. Bachira's dribbling has expanded and evolved to insane heights. He eventually would get by Isagi, but Nagi would basically catch up. But quickly enough, the speed difference between Chiguri and anybody else on that team would become apparent. A beautiful lob pass to Chiguri would lead to a goal and lead to it being 1-1. And being that it's up to 5, this does make it so it's a very competitive game. But Isagi says that his whole goal initially was to help Nagi evolve, so let's see if they can truly stop the prodigy, in which Isagi would stick to his word on that regard. So many different things would be more or less happening. Isagi is creative as can be, but who's just as creative, if not more creative? Nagi himself. Being that he has perfect ball control, insane trapping, and frankly, he has now so many different ways of trapping the ball, especially after seeing how Isagi passes him the ball entirely. When he traps the ball midair, Chiguri actually overcommits, immediately allowing him to more or less get the advantage. It doesn't matter how fast he is if he can't plant his feet properly. Immediately turning with his entire body and blitzing past Chiguri. Chiguri tries to recover, but Nagi's wide open for his first goal, scoring and leading them to a 2-1 score. Isagi would say that the longer this game goes, the more it will benefit him. He has a prodigy on his team, and that prodigy, all he's going to do is evolve and get better. And in terms of Bachira's little dribbling, well, give him time, and all he'll do is figure it out. But Kunigami would step up to the plate and say that it's far different than that, because he's dealing with different strikers now. Bachira would look for a pass quickly to Chiguri as he would do a quick tap pass to Kunigami, and Isagi would try to cover him, but just pure brute strength, it seems as if, well, Kunigami has gotten stronger, but he's not sure even how. He's pretty big as well, maybe as big as Kunigami, but still, how is he able to do something so easily? How is he able to do this so easily? But still, Kunigami would then turn face toward Isagi, and Isagi feels that he has him under wraps. He would get a toe on the ball, tipping it in a certain direction, and actually they would kind of scramble for it. But as they scramble for it, well, Kunigami looks for a strike down the middle, and immediately he would make sure that his foot would wrap around Isagi so that the ball would do the same. It would go spiraling out of control as if it's some sort of insane shot that was more or less just without him even seeing the goal entirely. And, well, he would score, making it 2-2. Isagi would shake his head and say that they were right. They're going to put up a fight, an insane one at that. And it seems like all of them have new tricks. He's really impressed. Really impressed. But, unfortunately, well, he hasn't showed them everything he can do as well. Isagi would then begin dribbling the ball, and it was as if he's doing this dribbling, and it was almost impossible to tell if he was going to do a touch pass, he was going to pass to Ryo or Nagi, or anything like that. He's insane. Absolutely insane. What is he? How is he? They're so insanely confused, but at the same time, it's as if he's truly the king of this field. He would do a tap pass to Nagi as Nagi would gather it relatively easily as he begins to more or less just try to juke out Bachira, and in which he would get past him. And it seems as if having Isagi on his team has put him in some sort of flow state, a total immersion into something that, well, he's never really felt before. The fact is, he's excited. He's extremely into it, and frankly, it's as if there's no stopping him, as if there's no chance. But this would go back and forth. Nagi would continue to evolve, and he would continue to score. Chiguri's speed would become an issue, and Kunigami's power would be as well, and it would end up being 4-4. Game point. Isagi says that it's been fun. It really has. And they are one hell of players. But he's going to sit this one out. In which they're all confused. Sit this one out? What is he even talking about? He can't just sit it out. They told him that if he sits it out, well, they'll just pick him and then it'll be game over. But Isagi would cross his arms. You'd pick me, someone that doesn't even want to be here. Very interesting. What about the purple-haired guy? You're going to let him and his striker dreams completely annihilate? What if they lose? What if Nagi and him lose? You know, that crazy guy, you know, the king, King Bado. He's still in this as well, right? You think he got a good teammate? I mean, just through deduction and knowing who's here, I would assume not. I mean, do you really think that you guys can take on someone like Atoshi Rin? I mean, it's possible. But do you really want it on your conscience that this purple-haired guy over here, Mr. Rayo, has to just go bye-bye from Blue Lock because you want me to stay? Isagi would tell them one more time to let him leave. Let him go. He understands the feelings they have because, in a way, he's had these feelings as well. He's grown to have a family here, have friends, brothers. He understands that. But he's telling them over and over again, he'll be back, just in a different way. And he's already evolved Nagi to the point that he'll be on the same level as many of them very soon. Kunigami is the superhero he's been wanting to be. And Bachira, you love soccer. So, how about this? Let me go. Let me go. Pick up Nagi. I'll go with Rayo. I'll throw the match. And they'll pick up Rayo. Okay? And then everything here can be done. Bachira would look at them and shake his head. No, we can't let you go out like that. I don't care what you're saying. How are you going to see us again? It's Blue Lock. Yes, it's Blue Lock, Bachira. But I'm also the son of the creator. You think I don't know a couple things? And, of course, in Isagi's head, this is a massive bluff. He doesn't know jack squat. And Bachira would stand there, and eventually, he would think to himself, maybe he does know something. And Kunigami would look toward Isagi, and he would shake his head. But then from kickoff, he would launch the ball as if, well, it was nothing, and he would score the final goal. Isagi would say that it's for the best, guys. Truly. They would pick up Nagi, and Isagi and Rayo would be the duo. He would tell Rayo that he'll help him evolve as much as possible. But at the same time, this last little bit, he's going to have to show that he's the better player. In which Isagi says it shouldn't be too hard, because Rayo has a lot more in him than he possibly believes. In which the battle, or the game, which is basically a battle, would be against Baro and Naruhaya. In which, let's be honest, if Isagi wanted it, he could win this with ease. But the King Baro, would more or less put up points relatively easily. But Isagi would, during this downtime and during this time in general, would speak with Rayo about what he can do better, what he could do to evolve, and just flat out what he can do in general. And toward the end of the game, being that it's already 4-1, Bado would question what Isagi's even doing. Isn't this the same guy that crushed them? The same guy that destroyed him? And Isagi would say that unfortunately, during the last selection, he got hurt. He tore something in his knee, and it was bad. And right now, he's kind of just playing on fumes. But it's okay. He tells them that once they win, that all they have to do is pick up Rayo. And he's going to get this checked out. And frankly, it might be the end of his career. In which Bado hears this, and in a way, he shows some sympathy. But at the same time, this is Blue Lock. And Blue Lock, you don't take any prisoners. So he kicks the ball and he scores his final goal. Reo would be picked, and Reo gives a thumbs up and more or less they fist bump, and he walks away. Isagi is now gone. Blue Lock has been overdone with him and over and done with him entirely. Isagi would leave Blue Lock, but before he could truly leave, he would be stopped by his father himself. His father would speak to him, saying that there's more to Blue Lock than he would possibly imagine. And Isagi says that he expected that. He knows the way his father thinks. But his father, Ego, would ask him to please sit down. He wants to speak with him. And after they speak, if he wants to truly leave still, he can. He wants to make this up to him. He knows that it's going to be difficult, but he wants to try. They sit down and they begin speaking. They begin speaking about what Blue Lock is, what it means, and what the proceedings will occur, or what proceedings will occur. And he tells him that there's something known as the wild card. The wild card is a training regimen, just like he did when he was younger, but far more intense. Something that he could easily handle. Something that would make him like the striker Noel Noah. But for him, it would be a little different. And frankly, it would be a little different for every single person, depending on who it was. But Isagi says that he's not necessarily interested in some wild card. Not at all. In which Ego thought so. He thought he would say that. But he would bring up the fact that Isagi himself said that he would consider coming back to Blue Lock. In which Isagi would nod. And he would say that he assumes his father, he assumes that he has more plans ahead. And he asks him, are those plans involving commercializing? Are those plans involving proving themselves for more funding? Because he knows they're running thin on money. In which Ego says that his bank account is completely there and completely fine. In terms of money, if he wants to leave Japan, he'll be just fine on his own. But in terms of the funding for Blue Lock, he would be correct. He would say that he does love his son. And maybe his work, no, definitely, his work clouded his judgment throughout the years. He wanted to mold him into the best striker. Mold him into a talent that was undefeatable. But he didn't even think about how Isagi was truly going to turn out. And the person he was going to be. In which he would say something before Isagi could cut him off. And he would say that no matter what, he's still his son. And he came out to be a fine man. And yes, he knows that this is probably too late to say these things. But he would love for him to enter the wild card. Transcend his skills to the next level. And truly turn Blue Lock on its head. Isagi would sit there for a moment. The wild card, huh? You know, Father, in any other imagination, in any other universe, I think I would be sitting here with you, and I would be agreeing to this. I'd be agreeing to the strenuous things you would want to put through, well, my being. I would be agreeing to the training that you want me to undergo. But this universe, it's a little different. I don't think I want to do that. And, of course, Ego would say that there are other options if he decides to leave. And phone calls will come sooner rather than later. And Isagi says that he wants to build a relationship with his father, Mr. Jinpachi Ego. But it just can't be here. Not on the same side. It just doesn't work for him. In which Ego would sit there, and even in a way he would get emotional himself. He would think to himself that he truly messed up. Not only is his son walking away from something that was created for him, but it's frustrating because he understands why. He understands exactly why. This would frustrate him, but he would agree. He would say that he'll be getting phone calls soon, very soon, and he can trust that. Trust and believe that. Isagi would nod and say that he'll be taking an international leave. He'll be getting a passport and most likely attempting citizenship at other places. He's obviously thinking about playing for another team, and that would mean leaving Japan, in which Ego would say that it's actually easier than you think. People have done it. Even the brother of Rin did it, in which Isagi would nod, saying that he knows, but he is expecting a phone call, and frankly, he thinks he knows who that's from. Isagi would leave, and throughout this time, he would go international. He would go from place to place, visiting strikers around the world. And eventually, he would actually meet with one person that he didn't know much about. But meet with is an understatement, or at least to an extent. He would know who this person is and known for a while, and kept in touch for a little bit, but not as much when he started training seriously. It's his own mother. His own mother would speak with him and ask him what his plans are. What he wants to do, if he still wants to play football. And of course he does. It runs in his blood. And that's all he knows. And it's still the game he loves, even if he didn't get to choose that. Isagi would be happy with the idea of speaking with his mother for a short amount of time. And he would say that he personally is on a mission. And he's truly a man on a mission. So he hopes that the opportunity will then ring. And during his international travel, he would stay in Italy for a little bit. And a couple months into his stay, and a couple months into jumping from training to training, learning about the culture, well, his phone would ring. And that ring, well, would be exactly from where he thought it would come. He'd pick up the phone and he would listen. And it would be the one and only Mark Snuffy. And he would be telling the kid that it seems like Blue Lock is a success, and that he'd love for him to join his team. Isagi would look at the TV that he was watching, the TV that was talking all about Blue Lock and the success that it was having, and how the televised U20 match and how everything went spectacular, and the sponsors are piling in, and money, funding, and everything is coming. And Isagi would tell him that he's been expecting this phone call. And if he wants, he's ready to lead his team. The smile could be heard through the phone of Mr. Mark Snuffy, and he would say that he hopes he's ready. He really hopes he's ready, because those kids at Blue Lock have evolved even greater than what he imagined when he was there. Isagi would smirk, and he would say that he's counting on it. But you have to know, he's evolved as well. But that is the end, for now, of What If Isagi Was Ego's Son. This was the finale. Yes, it's the finale. And I know it sounds like I'm leaving on a cliffhanger, which technically I am. Okay, I know a little bit about the manga, so that's why I'm able to set that cliffhanger up. Shout out to my boy Amaris, or Noxstratu, for helping me out a little bit. He gave me a couple little things that I could add to the ending or stuff like that to make it kind of cool. If y'all don't know me, and if y'all watch my videos before in My Hero Academia and stuff like that, I love building narratives like this. I love building a story like this. This is a little bit different than what I normally do, especially with Blue Lock What Ifs, but very, 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 very similar to stuff I would do in My Hero Academia, Demon Slayer, and stuff like that. But I want to say this. After I read the manga, I have full intention of giving y'all a little bit of a, let's say, a one-off. A one-off to What If Isagi Was Ego's Son, and it would be kind of like a one-off of like What If Isagi was on Mark Snuffy's team, right? So it will eventually come. I'm not 100% sure when, but if y'all show some love to this video, but also the movie of this series, if you show love to the movie, then, well, then you'll probably see it sooner rather than later. I will leave this all in, so if you're listening to this now after you just watched the movie, then you understand what I'm saying. I want to leave this in. I'll make sure to leave this in. And yeah, I don't have that much else to say. That's all. I hope y'all been enjoying the Blue Lock What Ifs. I've been enjoying making them, and I hope y'all have an amazing day. Later.